You like dragons? Imagine dragging these nuts across your forehead.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this weekend on the undercard of Josh Warrington versus Lee Wood 2. We're going to be seeing unbeaten up-and-comer child prodigy Tia Ayton take on 22-year-old Brazilian Catherine Ramos in a contest scheduled for 8 rounds in the women's bantamweight division. Bantamweight, that's where Dina Thorsland still reigns as Ring Magazine and lineal champion, but that is also where Shernika Johnson holds all the alphabet titles. That is where Tia Ayton is currently campaigning, sporting an unblemished record of 4 wins with no losses and no draws, 4 recorded knockouts. So far, every fight that Tia Ayton has won, she has won by way of knockout. So soon in her young boxing career, Tia Ayton is already being dubbed as the next possible face of women's boxing beyond Katie Taylor when she retires. Now her opponent, the lesser-known Catherine Ramos, sports professional record of 9 wins with 3 losses and 1 draw, 2 recorded knockouts, having never been knocked out. 13 professional bouts. She was last in action in October of last year opposite the ring, Nicole Silva, who she decisioned over 6 rounds. She fought 3 times last year, once in April, again in June, then again in October, so she won't have any ring rust to shake off this weekend. Catherine is a live one. This isn't your run-of-the-mill developmental fight, your run-of-the-mill bring-along fight for Tia Ayton. Catherine is currently on a 5-fight winning streak after having dropped a decision to the West Coast zone Adelaida Ruiz in August of 2024. Since then, Catherine has fought 5 times and won 5 times. One of those fights was against a familiar face and former champion Shannon Courtenay, who Catherine upset. She beat her. In effect, beat the odds. Will she be able to beat the odds again this weekend against Tia Ayton when there is a legitimate argument that Shannon Courtenay was a more experienced professional at the time that she fought Catherine than Tia is now? Tia only has 4 fights. Shannon lost. Is Tia Ayton about to? In her 4 fights, she would have grown accustomed to her power, getting a lot of respect, not yet facing a fighter that's willing to push back and press forward like Catherine Ramos can. I remember that Shannon Courtenay fight, Shannon doing her best to move and punch and fight her off, Catherine showing a lot of persistence, getting in with short counter left hooks on the inside. She had a lot of success with that punch within close quarters. She can get inside on Tia Ayton. What's going to happen? What I've noticed about Tia Ayton is she has a very strong right hand, and her best punches are her straight punches. Where Catherine's best punches seem to be her bent arm punches, her hooks, her body shots, all within close quarters. If she can get there, will Tia Ayton be able to handle the pressure? I haven't seen how the odds makers have it yet, but I'm going to assume they have Tia Ayton as the favorite, as there is very little known about Catherine Ramos amongst the casuals and the vulgars, the spectators in what is this spectator sport that are likely all going with Tia Ayton to win, and maybe she will, but maybe she'll have to work harder for this one than she's had her first 4 fights. Maybe she doesn't stop Catherine. Catherine has never been stopped, so if Tia can knock her out, I'd call that a statement win. Yeah, I'd be impressed. I remember reading that Tia Ayton makes a conscious decision to always go for the knockout in her fights, which makes her entertaining, albeit vulnerable, because the rule is, in going for the knockout, you run the risk of being knocked out, committing to your punches and really stepping into them. If you get caught in between, you get caught hard. Looking at Catherine, Tia Ayton has every reason to take this fight seriously, because this is not a bring-along fight. This is an acid test. Look for this weekend on the undercard of Lee Wood versus Josh Warrington 2. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, the undercard information for the upcoming Fundora versus Thurman fight has been confirmed. Elijah Garcia will be taking on Kevin Newman II. Cuban Yoanlit Gonzalez will be taking on Terrell Gachet, and Frankie Sanchez will be taking on Richard Torrez. Pay-per-view for that? It's ridiculous, I know, because not even the main event is so spicy, so titillating, that you should have to pay extra to see it on top of what you're likely already paying for other subscriptions to other platforms to watch boxing. But of course, the PBC is reduced to GoFundMe boxing, crowdfunded boxing, since they don't have a broadcast partner to give them a budget. They don't have a choice but to do a bunch of pay-per-views now. Simultaneously, their financial constraints aren't my problem or yours. A pay-per-view does not now become more attractive to the consumer because you guys can't afford to do regular shows. Because you ain't got no money doesn't mean you're gonna get mine. Figuratively speaking, in the shoes of the average consumer, because I, as a content creator, can always purchase the pay-per-view, do a live stream, to then not only make my money back, but turn over a profit. But not everybody is a content creator. Not everybody can resort to that. So for those individuals, what you have to ask yourself, is this value for money? And it so obviously isn't. I think Sebastian Fundora is a fun fighter to watch. Don't get me wrong, I've never seen Sebastian in a boring fight, but he just doesn't have the following for his fights to be behind a paywall. He's not facing somebody so good or somebody so popular, somebody so hot right now that you should have to pay extra to see him. You shouldn't. And the totality of his card is not so spicy and so titillating that you should have to pay extra to see that. It reaches a point to where, why are you even doing this show? You gotta ask. Why is it so important that Sebastian Fundora give a has-been in Keith Thurman an opportunity at a title that he hasn't earned, that he doesn't deserve? This isn't gonna make you guys a bunch of money. This is a glorified stay busy fight at the very most. If Sebastian Fundora goes in there and knocks Keith Thurman's head off, that's the least he can do for fighting a guy like that. And if he loses, it's even worse, because you didn't have to fight that guy. Call a spade, you're fighting a guy like Keith Thurman where you are, you're looking to stay on easy street, and you're looking to pick a cherry, so that if he beats you, yeah, that's a cherry pick gone wrong. What does he do after this? In what is often dubbed one of the deeper divisions in all of boxing right now, there are better people to fight at junior middleweight than Keith Thurman. There is unified champion Zender Zayas, IBF champion Josh Kelly, Virgil Ortiz, pending his situation with Golden Boy Promotions, and if not him, Jaron Ennis, all of which would get you a lot more attention and money than boxing Keith Thurman. The only sensible fight I can think of for Keith that makes sense and maybe should happen is him versus the winner of the proposed Spence versus Tim Tszyu fight. I wouldn't mind seeing Keith fight the winner of that fight, but this, getting fast-tracked to a world title for doing little more than beating Brock Jarvis? A blown-up lightweight. What constitutes a world title fight, the bar of standard has lessened as of late, because this shouldn't even be allowed. This fight shouldn't be approved. What is Sebastian gonna do if he wins late next month in March? This division is way too deep for this bullshit. There are way better people for him to be fighting than Keith Thurman. You could argue that they're doing a good job of extending Sebastian Fundora's world title reign, keeping him safe, but he can't be making much money for a fight like this. The undercard, we're going to be seeing unbeaten Richard Torres take on Cuba's own Frankie Sanchez. The fight will provide chief support to the bout between Sebastian and Keith at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas on Prime Video pay-per-view. Another addition to the long-standing PBC versus Top Rank rivalry, as Richard Torres is still promoted by Top Rank, and it would seem that Frankie Sanchez is still promoted by the PBC. All that remains of what was once their heavyweight stable. Frankie Sanchez and Torres have long been linked for a bout, and they finally have a date. They're going steady? Set for their significant slugfest, the winner will emerge as the mandatory challenger to Alexander Usyk, the Ring Magazine, IBF, WBA, and WBC champion and pound-for-pound king. A victory on March 28th moves me one step closer to being the IBF's mandatory challenger and realizing my dream of becoming the first Cuban heavyweight champion of the world, said Sanchez. Torres is a strong fighter who's hungry to prove himself, but I will win this fight in grand fashion for my great Cuban and Latino fans. The Cuban Flash, Sanchez, 25-1 with 18 knockouts, bounced back from the lone loss of his career in 2024, a 7th-round stoppage against Agit Caballel, with a tune-up fight and 3rd-round stoppage against Ramon Olivas. last February.
Last February? A year ago?
In Mexico, Torres, the ring's number 9 ranked heavyweight contender and a 2020 U.S. Olympic silver medalist, took home a pair of wins last year against Guido Vianello in April and Thomas Salek in November. Frank is skilled, technical, and dangerous, and that's exactly the kind of challenge I've been looking for, said Torres. Great fighters don't avoid tests. They run towards them. I've prepared for every moment of this fight, and when the bell rings, I'm coming to take over. The fight itself is a byproduct of Richard Torres' promoted Top Rank being between broadcasters right now, because if they had one, I believe they would be the ones doing this fight, paying for it. Richard is a fighter that they are invested in, what represents the next generation of top-rank fighters and top-rank talent. He's very good. I believe his previous fight with Guido Vianello serviced as a rehearsal for this one. Guido, like Frankie Sanchez, is a long and limber heavyweight who likes to move around, use the ring, and create space. Richard was able to close the distance on him. In spite of being the shorter, stumpier, stockier fighter, he was able to get to him, so that I think he'll be able to get to Frankie Sanchez. What usually happens when a top-ranked fighter meets a PBC fighter? Usually, the top-ranked fighter wins. Yeah, we just saw that when O'Shaquie Foster took on former champion Stephen Fulton. O'Shaquie took him to school. Top-ranked fighters have met with PBC fighters a good number of times over the years, and usually, the way that it goes, the top-ranked fighter wins. Usually, the top-ranked fighter wins big.
Why does it usually happen that way?
I believe it has everything to do with Top Rank's vetting process. They don't just get a fighter fights for the sake of getting a fighter fights. They develop the fighter, they groom the fighter, putting them in there in a variety of situations with different opponents. It's different from what the PBC does.
Why, what do they do?
I mean, they'll get you fights, but the focus is making you look good, making you look world-class, making you seem better than what you are, which is a lot different to what Top Rank does. They don't want you to just look good, they want you to be good, so they put you in the fire.
So I believe that Richard Torres is going to win this fight, and win this fight by way of knockout, similar to what he did in the Guido Vianello fight, barreling forward at a slight crouch, closing the distance, getting in with short hooks and heavy punches. I believe he's going to stop Frankie Sanchez. It wouldn't surprise me if he stops him to the body.
Once he gets inside, Frankie Sanchez, like a lot of Cuban fighters, is an outboxer, a long-distance fighter at his age. I don't think he's got the speed in those feet to outrun.
What do you mean at his age? Isn't he supposed to be in his late 20s, early 30s?
Cubans lie about their age upon coming to America all the time. I don't think for a second Frankie Sanchez is in either his late 20s or early 30s. The point being, I don't think Frankie Sanchez has the speed in those feet to outrun Richard Torres and keep this a long-distance fight. I think Richard is going to get to him, and when he does, he's going to unload. I like Richard Torres to win by way of knockout. Elsewhere in the heavyweight division, at what was the kickoff press conference for his upcoming fight with Arslanbek Makhmudov, Tyson Fury predicts Usyk will beg for a third fight. Fury suffered the only 2 losses of his career against Usyk in May, in December of 2024, and abruptly retired for a 5th time 13 months ago. The former heavyweight champion Fury has kick-started yet another comeback campaign for a fight against Arslanbek Makhmudov on April 11th at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. Fury's fight with Russia's Makhmudov will be streamed by Netflix. It is also the main event of a card presented by The Ring, not Queensberry. It's not Old Fish Eyes Frank Warren at the helm of the promotion. England's Fury believes that Usyk, who still owns The Ring magazine, WBA, WBC, and IBF titles, and is the sport's consensus pound-for-pound king, will have no choice but to face him again. At the end of the year, Usyk will be begging me for a third fight, Fury told The Ring. It's not me wanting to fight with him. He'll be begging me to do a fight with him. Begging me. You watch. Money is the reason he'll be begging me to fight. I'm the cash cow, top of the tree, with the biggest broadcaster on earth behind me. I'm Netflix's golden child. Where else is he gonna go? Who else is he gonna fight? Fight heart people for no money? That sounds really clever.
He's got a point. You could fight Agit Cabello, you could fight the winner of Torres versus Sanchez, but none of them will get you the money that Fury can get you. Of course, that's assuming some wealthy benefactor is willing to put that fight together. You have to ask, Does Turkey want to see a third fight between them? Does Netflix?
After beating Fury, Anthony Joshua, and Daniel Dubois twice over the last 5 years, Usyk has been left without any real revenue-generating rivals that could add to his legacy. Usyk was so uninterested in a fight against WBO mandatory challenger Fabio Wardley that he vacated that title in November because he deemed the fight to be a bad business decision. Other top challengers like WBC interim champion Agit Kabayel haven't interested Usyk either. Instead, Usyk pursued negotiations with former Fury arch-nemesis Deontay Wilder, but a deal never crossed the finish line. Fury, 37, says he plans to fight into his 40s. If the 39-year-old Usyk sticks around too, a third fight should become a reality. I was happily done with boxing, Fury said. Before the 2 fights with Usyk, I was gonna retire anyway. Win, lose, or draw. I believe I won both of those fights. Then, now, tomorrow, next year, forever. I'm above it. I'm over it. I don't care. Here is the thing. I was very bitter with boxing for a long time. I will take it to the grave that I won both those fights.
Fury's contention's enough to ensnare a third crack at the apple with Alexander Usyk. Can we expect that? And I maintain that while Fury might want a third fight and think he can get one, I don't know that Turkey wants to put that together. I don't know that Netflix does either. If they don't, Fury's not up the creek without a paddle. There are other big fights they can do for him. Some bigger than an Usyk rematch. One at least. The Anthony Joshua showdown. Anthony Joshua, after having survived that horrific car accident, did not retire like some people expected him to, leaving the door open for a potential Tyson Fury showdown that could go down on Netflix.
Fury can't get Usyk for a third time. He can always fight Anthony Joshua when he comes back. He can also always fight the winner of Dubois versus Wardley. That was recently announced. That if you can't get Usyk and Anthony's not ready yet, you can always fight the winner of that fight. Now that you've got Netflix behind you, it would be even bigger. Anything that Netflix gets their hands on has the Midas touch. It's thereby made even bigger just because they're involved and because they're not putting it behind a paywall. They're streaming it live to their 330 million plus subscribers all around the world. That makes this Makhmudov fight a global event.
It was just a tune-up fight before for Fury. Now, it's a big deal.
Though, is Tyson Fury gonna make it past Arslanbek Makhmudov in what is the most unpredictable division in all of boxing? At heavyweight, you can be skilled. You can be very skilled, but it only takes one punch to put a guy away.
When the men are that size, it only really takes one punch to finish the fight, put a guy away. So you have to wonder, does Fury still have the agility, the speed in those feet to manage the distance against a very big, very aggressive, and very strong Arslanbek Makhmudov? Not because Makhmudov is so good, but because Fury has been so inactive and he's not getting any younger.
Having seen that Tyson Fury has been out for the last 13 months, it would behoove Makhmudov to pour it on and pour it on thick very early in the fight. Don't give Fury the chance to settle himself and grow into the fight.
The Russian's got to shoot out of his corner like a bat out of hell and make it rough and tumble early on, whereas Fury has to do the opposite. He has to keep the fight at a slow, controlled pace so he can settle himself to get back in the swing of things, simultaneously dominate the rounds. We'll see if he can in a few weeks' time.